Hello, everyone. How are we doing across Canada tonight? Well, let's see as people come in. I've already welcomed everyone. And it'd be great if you guys let me know that you're there. 10 people are in already. Wow. Here we go. Beautiful day out in the Rocky Mountains today, Canmore area. A little bit cloudy, overcast, but a beautiful day out. Nature's all around. The birds are starting to sing. So beautiful time of year. Things are starting to rejuvenate. Oh, Marcia, thank you. Hello from Regina. That's great, Marcia. Thanks for letting me know that you can see me and you can hear me. I appreciate that. So it's always nervous. I can't see you guys, but you guys can see me. So awesome. 46 people in now. So slowly everyone will come in. Hello from Toronto. Right on, Roxanne. Great. Greta from Calgary. Awesome. Donna from St. Albert. Robin and Steve from Indiana. Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us south of the border there. Marla, our awesome team member out in Saskatoon. Great to see you, Marla. Hey, David, how are you doing? Nice to see you and Mary. That's awesome. Hello from Kamloops. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Sylvan Lake, Jen, right on. Hi, all, right on. Trish from Edmonton. Awesome, awesome. Everybody's coming in. So, yeah. Well, we'll give it another minute or two and then we'll be on our way. I'm going to be sharing an amazing webinar tonight just about my most recent adventures up in the Arctic. So I appreciate you all taking the time to join me and to celebrate Canada's northern region. I feel very fortunate to have been able to travel there over many, many years. I started my Master's of Science degree there researching Arctic fox. So I feel very lucky to have got the opportunity to be there as much as I have. So. All right. It is 6 o'clock. Let's start with our regular poll. I'm always about the polls, right? So let's start with our poll. Where is everyone from tonight? All right. So where is everyone from? People are still coming in here, we can see, but let's just start with the poll as people get in. I know Western Canada always wins this poll. Come on. Australia, one day, can you win this? Anyway, I'm just joking. So Eastern Canada is always a strong second. I love it. So good to see, good to see. Yeah, well, we do have Australia tonight. 2% of people are from Australia. Another part of this beautiful world, 2%. I'd like to know where you're from. That's awesome. United States is 4%. Okay, we're going to end the poll here. All right, 65% again, Western Canada. That seems to be always the number. Eastern Canada, 25%. United States, 4%. Thank you for all those joining us from the South. Nobody from the United Kingdom tonight. Surprising, but it is a big time change. So, and 2% from Australia. I don't know what time it is in Australia, but you can tell us in the chat. That'd be awesome. And another part of this beautiful world, we'd love to know where you're from, another part of this beautiful world. So that would be fun to see. Anyway, Toronto, Markham, wow, Toronto, Saskatoon, Los Angeles. That's great. Thank you, everyone. All right. Well, I'm going to start off first off by thanking all of you for joining again, for those of you that weren't quite in yet. Second off, I want to thank my team at All in the Wild. I have an amazing team at All in the Wild, just fantastic people that are advocates for nature. They work super hard. You know, they're there for all of us, whether they're building the beautiful art that you have all collected, whether they're in the galleries selling or sharing the beautiful stories about Mother Nature, about the images that I've captured, and all the people behind the scenes. There's quite a team of All in the Wild ones, and really just want to do a shout out to all of them. Tonight is going to be a fairly abbreviated webinar, and part of it is that I want you guys to interact. I want this to be a very interactive webinar. So what do you want to ask me? What is it that you want to talk about in terms of the Arctic or maybe other topics as well? It's going to be a busy webinar. I have a lot of videos to share this time, simply because the videos tell the story a little bit more than I'm able to through still images. So there will be quite a bit of video, quite a bit of me back and forth while I'm jumping between video and the PowerPoint presentation. So please be patient with me. I'll do the best I can. And if there's any glitches, just stay on. There's, of course, the bandwidth is always a little bit of an issue. We know that. So just stay on and let the feed come back in. If anything happens on my end, if there's something going on, please in the chat, please say to me, hey, we can't hear you, or I didn't see that last video. The videos, I'm going to leave them run a little bit extra. For some of you, I know that they lag a little bit longer, so it might be an extra 3 or 4 seconds. And so you might see me kind of just here sitting. That's just to make sure that everyone's getting to see the end of the video. I understand that I do end up cutting off some of the videos a little bit sooner than what people would like. So, okay. I don't think I have anything else right now. It doesn't seem like there's any questions in the chat. So without further ado, let's begin with the slideshow here. Oh, and let's start with another poll before we get going. Okay, we're gonna one more poll. I'm curious to know, how many of you have seen a polar bear in the wild? How many of you have been fortunate enough to see a polar bear in the wild? Oh, 100% are no so far. Oh, a few people, a few yeses now coming in. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a very common thing to see this species in the wild. There's only a few places in the world that are easily accessible to see the polar bears. I'll end this poll. Looks like about 80% of you have not seen polar bears. 20% of you have. So congratulations to those of you that have, and for those of you that haven't, I hope that my work, I hope that what I'm sharing tonight can bring you a little bit closer to them and appreciate them even more. So amazing, amazing species. Okay. Let's start with the first slide here. So tonight is going to be entitled Thin Ice. I just recently returned from Canada's north. I was up north again, north of the Arctic Circle, out on the Arctic Ocean ice, photographing my favorite species to capture images of, and that's the polar bear. I always go in April. I've been going for over 12 years. April is a time of year where I can actually hack it. The Arctic is quite a cold environment. So it's just one of those times where you can actually manage to be okay up there. And I'll start with a video here, why we've called this presentation Thin Ice. There's a very important reason. So anyway, here we go.
The time when Jason went through, after he got out, my grandson, he take a spear on the trail that we did, go back, poop with a spear, not a feel, straight down, right into the water. We drive right over that snow, just the snow. If we stop right there, we would have seen right there. But all of us is okay. Our snow machines are okay, but it was hard to think, how are we gonna get back? Spear just straight down. No, not a pressure, right through.
Excuse me, everyone. Yeah, no sound, excuse me. So that video is kind of coming halfway back to an inland camp that we had stayed at the previous night. And we had stayed at that previous camp that night. Usually we'll go one complete day to get to our polar bear camp, but we had stayed there because we were a little bit nervous from some satellite imagery that there could be some soft spots, some soft areas of the ice. And what we didn't expect was for it to be as soft as it was, and for there actually to be no ice there in areas that we have traveled many, many times. And what David is referring to is that at one point we had water coming up from the track of his snowmobile. And so I raced up beside him and I parked, and he kind of was like, well, what's going on? So I stepped off my snowmobile. And I stepped 3 steps only to take a polar bear dip into the Arctic Ocean, unexpected, and not a fun experience at all. Luckily, my elbows caught on the edge of the ice, and I was able to act like a seal and use my hands to climb out and get myself to safety and to David. And I hugged this little chunk of ice right beside David and said, I'm not moving, but that wasn't an option. Anyway, when we look at the Arctic region of Canada, it's a inhospitable area typically for most Canadians. There's very few species that survive there and thrive there. If we look at these trees right here, as you go further and further north, basically you're getting to no trees. So once you get past the tree line, that's considered the Arctic. These trees here are right on the edge of the Arctic, and they would be considered to be probably a couple hundred years old, something like that. I assume, can people hear me now? Just to double check, there's lots of people still saying they can't hear me, or maybe my feed is just late. Do you guys have me? I just need a quick yes, you can hear me. I think so. Sorry, everyone. Yes, okay, perfect. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so with that being said, it's an area of Canada where there can be darkness for 24 hours of the day. And then you can have summers where there's light for 24 hours of the day. And then you can have these beautiful northern light shows in the Arctic as well. But David always makes the joke, and now I've started to make the joke, that they're not really northern lights. We're so far north, we actually call them southern lights because they tend to be in the southern skies. They're not the northern skies. And so it's an area of extreme beauty, extreme remoteness, extreme harshness. And when it comes to doing photography, extreme conditions for photography as well. And my 12 years on the Arctic Ocean ice, I've experienced almost everything, never going through the ice yet. So now I've got that one checked off in a box and I don't need to do that again. And it's a hard environment to work in. And it really, the images that I've captured, I feel so grateful for, because I now realize how complicated and how difficult they've been to capture in that environment. It's been a real gift. And so when we look at the Arctic, we can think of the Inuit peoples up there. There's about, well, Canada's landmass, 40% of it is Arctic, and about 200,000 inhabitants up there are Canadians. 100,000 of those would be Indigenous peoples. And they made a living on this ice. This was a big ecosystem for them. As much as they made a living inland with caribou hunting and trapping and such, the ice was really a source of a lot of their food. They hunted whales, they hunted polar bears. Their seals were a big part of their diet as well. Of course, fishing and all of that. And then the modes of transportation, they made sealskin kayaks and such to get around. And so they really were in tune with this environment, and they still are. David is a man of the land, and he grew up there. He was actually born in an igloo, if you can believe that. Incredible, just to think that he was born in an igloo. And he just knows that land well and knows the ice well, and they have to in order to be able to survive. It's very important. So, and of course, I have the good fortune to go up and blessed to get to experience these guys right on the ice. So feel pretty lucky. Yeah, I'll share this with you. Beautiful video. That gives you an idea of some of the beautiful travelers. Polar bear tracks right there across the ice as we're driving. Some more polar bear tracks to the right there. Just a beautiful scene. Very wild, very intense to a certain extent, and very special to me. I think I might have been a polar bear in the previous life, so just seems that, just seems to be my place. And when we're up there, we're out to see something yellow, and we'll go to these high hills. I've mentioned them before. We'll go to these high hills and we'll glass with our binoculars to look for polar bears, and you can see a long ways. And you're looking for something yellow. Yeah, just again a beautiful scene of nature and wide open spaces. That's the edge of the Arctic Ocean there. You can see in the distance. Yeah, incredible vistas. Now you may ask, okay, so you went through the ice, you're out there glassing, what happened? Well, we ended up going back to an inland camp. And with that inland camp, it meant that we had to travel about an hour daily to go back and forth to the ice. And the inland climate can be quite different than the ocean climate. Typically, inland is very foggy, can be blizzardy in terms of whiteout and such. Whereas sometimes on the Arctic Ocean, you know, with it being colder there, the skies seem to be brighter, the weather seems to be a little bit nicer. So it's kind of a trade-off this year, and it made things a lot more complicated in terms of trying to work and trying to capture images and be out with the polar bears. Let's just talk a little bit about that ice to start with. This is me about 4 years into my 12-year excursion, so 8 years ago. And this is on the edge of a frozen island, and that gives you an impression of the ice that can be there. But this is nothing compared to what stories David has shared with me. When he used to hunt seals, they would hunt them in the seal breathing holes. So a breathing hole is an area in the ice where the seal keeps it open and can come up to this surface and grab a breath of air. They require air, of course. And when they're hunting, they can see the water oozing up as this seal is coming up the breathing hole, and they can get their harpoon point ready to hunt the seal. And the seal really has no choice when it's coming up. It's such a long column of ice. David told me that when he was young and hunting seals, so, you know, in his early teens, late teens, mid-teens, you know, he said sometimes you'd look down seal breathing holes to see if you could see a seal down there. And he said you couldn't see the bottom of the ice. It wasn't even possible to see the bottom of the ice. Now, a lot of times when we look down seal breathing holes, we're looking at less than a foot of ice. So when you're hunting a seal now, if it's coming up, it can easily escape if it sees the hunter above and such. So that, of course, impacts individuals who are hunting. This is just some facts. You can see that, you know, 2012 versus 1984, just the extent of the ice, and the fact that, you know, the Arctic climate has warmed up nearly 4 times faster than the globe since 1979. And that's just a reality of what's happening in Canada's north. And NASA has put together a time lapse of ice conditions, and I'll just share that with you here with this video. And this is from 1979 to 2021. And of course, as we're looking at the North Pole region, Canada is in the top left there. You can see the Hudson Bay and such. And you can see how that annual Arctic sea ice minimum area is on a steady decline and really starts to drop off as we get into 2010 area, yeah, the 2000s. Little increases, little ups and downs, but it has overall a trajectory of quite a drastic decline. So this was me when we got back to camp after going through the ice on day 1.
Okay, just back to camp here. We left today at noon. It's midnight now. We headed to our typical cabin for polar bear photography, but the ice conditions were way too rough. And then I got to take a little bit of a surprise dip in the ocean. Yeah, wow, priceless. I got everything. We were greeted with beautiful northern lights on the way home, dancing above us. Back at this cabin I'll call home now because we're safe. And ice conditions have changed in the Arctic here. It's just different than it was years ago.
I just want to double check that everyone can hear me. I'm back on here, but I want to make sure that I got the mic back on. Do you guys all have me again? Just a yes from somebody would be awesome. Anyway, that was me returning after a long day of snowmobiling and going through the Arctic Ocean ice. Okay, perfect. Thank you. You might ask, how did I manage that? How did that all happen? Luckily, we had our Cometex, which is the Inuit sleds that we pull behind our snowmobiles. I had a change of clothes there. And so we were able to get me changed up, get some dry socks on, some Comex, which are like a big duffel sock, a big sock, put that in plastic bags and put them back in my boots. And everything else was fairly dry. I had only gone up to my hips, thankfully. I had not done a full polar bear dip. So that was very thankful that had happened. And getting away from that soft spot, as David kind of mentioned, we didn't realize there was no ice at all. What was there was just basically snow with a bunch of rough chunks of ice. And it was just snow that had drifted over, and there was nothing below us. With their harpoon points just went through when they looked at how we were going to navigate out. Everyone was scared. We didn't want to lose snowmobile. We obviously didn't want to lose ourselves. And it was a good 45 minutes of snowmobiling to 3 kind of junctions where David would go ahead and say, when I get there, I'll wave you. Don't go in my snowmobile track. Go beside my snowmobile track. The throttle is your friend. If you start sinking through, you don't hit the throttle really fast. You just get speed going so you keep out. And yeah, pretty tough to have to face that and know that there was that much risk in that situation. And the third leg of that before we hit the land was probably the most nervous, as there was no rough ice, which was really great because you could open up the throttle, but we also knew that there was nothing really below us. And so it was just time to go and keep it moving. And as you got closer to shore, the rough ice came upon us, and you had to navigate that with a Cometex that is coming behind you, and you don't want that to ram into the back of your sled or have a different type of accident. So when I got back to that inland camp that we had left from that day, that was about somewhere around the neighborhood of 12 to 14 hours of being on a snowmobile and having had the ordeal and everything. And I mentioned the Northern Lights, and it was quite nice. They weren't quite this brilliant. This is a shot from a little bit of a northern spot up in the Arctic, but not from Polar Bear Camp. And it was nice to have that warmth above of Northern Lights dancing as we were heading back to camp and got back to camp safe. And the next part of this trip was very introspective, very much about thinking about the polar bears, thinking about what I could do to help the polar bears, thinking about how you could make changes to this planet, how you could help to move the needle towards some important changes for a species that, in my opinion, is the canary in the coal mine for global climate change. And I really didn't come up with any solutions at all, except that the planet's been here for 4 billion years, and the sun is not going to burn out for another 5 billion. So Mother Nature is pretty resilient and pretty phenomenal. So I got a different type of experience. I was in this inland camp. We got to experience some species that we typically wouldn't because we were inland, like barren ground caribou, some beautiful encounters with some small herds. This drone video was pretty awesome. They look like little ants down there, but yeah, just the shadows on the snow, quite a beautiful scene of nature. And beautiful valleys that I had never snowmobiled through, beautiful snow cliffs, and presented challenges getting down to the Arctic Ocean ice. It was a very, the topography was not mountainous, but close to it. And our travels down to the ice were actually quite, yeah, you can see from the hills behind us, we had some big challenges to get up and down and to find the right locations where we could actually get up and down from that ice. David did actually roll his snowmobile on one of those occasions, but he was okay. And we were able to navigate a good trail that we use daily, but we had to use with caution because, again, inland was that foggy conditions a lot of times, and we had to be careful as to what was going on. So it brought other opportunities. Again, it brought a lot of thoughtfulness. We had some stormy days, which we always have in the Arctic. Those are always tough days to be in camp. But, you know, you get to know David a little bit better. You get to know yourself a little bit better. And it made me write a lot. I did a lot of writing. And I had some cool experiences. Look at this amazing drone shot of a mother polar bear with her single cub. And this is something that over the 12 years of my photography that I've seen, and David, obviously, as a man who was born in an igloo and lived on that land, has seen a lot more than I have. And we're not going to see polar bears necessarily starve. That's not going to be what's happening here. As the ice continues to thin, we're going to see polar bears, specifically mother bears, that are not in the physiological condition required to pull off really successful pregnancies. So they have a system known as delayed implantation. Mating happens in the month of May, and polar bears go through hibernation in the summer. They're completely reversed to grizzly bears. So in the summertime, they hate the heat. Their metabolism is well adapted for the cold. At minus 30, their metabolism is level. They don't have any issue staying warm at all. At plus 30, they're struggling. They're using up a lot of resources just to stay cool. And so with that mother bear being impregnated in May, the little embryo is in her uterus and it sits there, and her body makes a decision come that fall. So in October, her body will decide, yeah, I do have enough fat reserves. I'm going to go find a den, and I'm going to go have my little babies in there in January, my little cubs. Other bears are heading out on the ice to hunt. She's not. She's making the ultimate sacrifice to go have more cubs and to continue the success of her species, the longevity of her species. Well, her body might decide I can only pull off one cub, and so only one embryo will implant on the uterine wall, and the other little embryos will be reabsorbed. And this is what the canary in the coal mine will look like. Slowly, we will have less and less cubs. Moms will have less and less cubs, and their reproductive rates, which are extremely low already, well, reproductive failure is predicted to happen by 2040, which means at that point, polar bears won't be replacing themselves anymore. So this was an incredible scene. And in all my years of being up there, I've seen scenes like this, but this was just such a fresh scene. And I hope it doesn't disturb people. It's part of nature. It's part of what happens in the Arctic. It's part of the success story of polar bears. And just show you this awesome video. You can see a mom and two little cub tracks as my drone goes up. Wow. Incredible scene of nature. Yeah, just incredible. For those of you that are biologists out there like myself, you would be really impressed with that. I get for others, it might be a little bit tough to see. I want to tell you what's going on here. So this was something we happened upon near one of my camera traps. So given the ice conditions and such, I put camera traps out this year, which would stay out on the ice, and bears might be curious in them. We used a little bit of natural char, the fish that you catch up there, to try to attract them in the areas of my camera traps, so that maybe I would get some awesome pictures. We used this scene as well. We set up a camera trap right here because we knew that other polar bears would come back to visit it. Those three holes that you see on the outer perimeter of where this actual capture happened, those three holes would be where the mother bear was trying to figure out where this seal's birthing lair was. That is a seal's birthing lair there. So that's where a seal would have had a little one. And she would have broke through the ice very, very slowly, David told me. He's seen that. I've seen it before too, but not as many times as he has. And she'd stick her nose in there and she'd try to figure out, she'd be listening very intently. What's going on here? She'd be trying to figure out the puzzle to this whole scene. And then what might happen is that little seal pup might have went down. It might have, it would have some ability to swim under the water and try to get away, but it would eventually have to come up again. And the bear would be listening for that. And maybe there's a couple different breathing holes there, because a lot of times the birthing layers, the adults have other areas where they can escape and try to grab a breath of air. Well, what would happen there is that the little cubs might help out. They might actually be at those 3 other little holes kind of playing around or moving around, and the seals would hear that. And yet mom would be waiting at the big birthing layer for that opportunity when she hears that seal come up, and she would crash through the ice and trap that seal and then make a successful hunt. Mother bears arriving to the Arctic Ocean ice is timed with seals having their young as well. So it's an opportunistic time for mother bears to regain their physiological needs, put a whole bunch of fat on, and then go ahead and be able to be a great mother in terms of providing the nutrients required for their young cubs. Yeah, pretty cool how it's all finely tuned together, finely tuned. Want to just switch gears for a second here. Last year, I'll just start this offer for you, because I know you all love to collect my work, and I appreciate that. All of us at All in the Wild, we need you to collect our work so that we can do what we do. And in 2023, I chose this image as the Earth Day print. Earth Day is something that we celebrate at All in the Wild. We believe Earth Day should be every day, just for what it represents. A focus on the earth, a focus on species, and the focus on helping this planet to be a better planet, a more healthier planet, a sustainable planet. And I chose this image in 2023 because he was such a powerful animal. Look at that bear. Look into those eyes. Look at the snow on the top of his forehead. And I made this black and white because, in my opinion, climate change is a black and white issue. It's not gray. It's black and white. It's happening. It's caused by us. And we need to be thinking about what we can do to mitigate it and to change this ship. There was hope in this image, though. Even though it was entitled Judge, there was hope. There was hope in terms of polar bears are resilient. They're a strong species. This big male polar bear is out on the ice. Look at how he's even got kind of rolls on his shoulders. He's healthy. He's strong. And he's going to be a survivor. Some way he's going to make it. He's going to continue to help his species survive over the long term. And so in 2024, many of you may have got this through your emails, and some of you may have already collected it, but we went ahead and offered a new image, a different male, and that was Out of the Darkness. And we all know who this guy is. This is the boss, Canada's most notorious bear in Canada. And again, the species is very sensitive to human disturbance. When we look at the area of Banff National Park, you might be surprised to know there's only 65 grizzlies in Banff National Park. It's a very low number. There used to be somewhere historically estimated to be 6,000 to 9,000 grizzly bears in Alberta. That number is now slightly under 1,000. This animal, this boss, he's nicknamed the boss, right? It's been hit by the train and he survived it. He's father of over 50% of the cubs in the valley. He's in his mid-20s, which is really old for a grizzly bear. He is a survivor. Hence the title, Out of the Darkness. He's out of the darkness. He's a survivor. He's resilient. In the face of all the challenges of trains, of highways, of us humans that don't always play by the right rules with wildlife. He's 25. He's a great father, a great bear, legendary in Canada. Pretty awesome. I wish every polar bear was legendary like the boss. In my opinion, they all are. So when we look at the Canadian Arctic, changing sea ice is affecting subsistence species. We can look at the whole web that's there, a whole plethora of species that really rely on the sea ice. We can go to the Inuit peoples who make a living by hunting and fishing on that ice. We can look at what's going to happen to some of those species that they hunt and fish for, like the char. We can look at ringed seals that without ice might not be able to have little birthing layers to have their young ones, right? Pretty tough if you don't have that platform of ice. Where's she going to birth her young one? Where's she going to protect her young one under a blanket of snow that she's dug out from underneath the ice and had her little one to raise? And of course, beluga whales, sea ducks. At the top of all of this is polar bears, and polar bears are known as a keystone species. They are a species that without them, the system below is out of balance. Will it collapse? It won't collapse. It'll just be really out of balance. They keep a balance for the entire system by their hunting. 99% of their diet is that ringed seal. And so many other species rely on their captures of ringed seals, either to clean up something that might be there or whatever it might be. Yeah, they rely on it. We had some inclement weather that came in by being in the inland, and I mentioned about stormy weather and such. It's always a time where you get to relax, but I didn't need much more relaxing.
I think he's going to, once you get it, I think he's going to.
Incredible little moment there. Blizzard had moved in, and you really get to see how well adapted these species are and how we're not. We go outside and it's like, oh my gosh, your face starts to turn white because you're getting frostbite. But those little species, no issue. And that Arctic fox was at camp, and he was looking for little treats that might be outside our camp door. And their nose tells them the story. They're great travelers. I shared a story on my social today or yesterday talking about Arctic fox. And when I did my Master's of Science degree up in Canada's North, I affixed radio collars on Arctic fox. And a fellow friend, Gustav, he had captured foxes as well and put collars on them. And he picked up some research after I was gone from that camp. And a hunter contacted him, or I guess the Hunter and Trapper organization contacted them from a community 1,200 kilometers away from where I had radio collared this fox. They had caught this fox, and it was a fox that I had collared years before. So great little travelers, and their nose tells them where to go. They just follow their nose. Yeah. So we'll see some amazing scenes out there. This is from a few years ago. Mother polar bear sleeping with her young one at rest, calm. But the truth of the matter is that for the most part, a lot of these bears are under extreme stress right now, food stress, just not being able to replenish and get the nutrients they need to be successful, to do what they were biologically, what they had biologically evolved to do. So very different when you actually think of what's really going on inside of that mother's head. And the cub's so reliant on her love and so reliant on her being there for her, a strong, strong mom. And these bears, they capture these seals, and then you look, you've got wolverines out on the ice, you've got ravens, you have wolves, and all the other life that's there to clean up what might be left behind, and so that they can go ahead and have a successful year of having their species be successful. Arctic fox are highly dependent on the hunting of the polar bears so that they can capture seals, or the hunting that the polar bears do, so that they can feed on seal remains, So, yeah. Just like this guy. That was pretty incredible little moment. to have around camp, and a beautiful Arctic fox. They say they're the best adapted species in the Arctic. Metabolism really doesn't change at -50. That's because in the wintertime, they lower their metabolic rate about 25%. So their expectations are a lot less. They slow things down. They can survive -70 without really blinking. Their fur coat becomes about 140% more insulative in the wintertime. They have something called countercurrent blood flow, which means as the blood goes out to the extremities, it cools, and as it comes back up, it warms, so that they're not having to warm their blood at the very tips of their paws and such. They have fur on their little feet, which is very uncommon. That's not a common thing to see in a lot of carnivore species, canid species. I think it's the only canid species that has fur on their feet. So very well adapted to that type of lifestyle. And we'll go to a video here. And again, I apologize. It's a lot to navigate when I've got so many videos this time. But these seals, it's what's so important. What a beautiful moment that was. Just incredible. Little camera underneath the ice. And then this was a surprise. Wow. Felt very blessed with that one. So we had to cut our trip short. David got called back to the community for other reasons. And with the ice conditions the way they were, we had lost 4 days at the start of our trip. The big travels back and forth, being inland and it being foggy, so we couldn't necessarily travel every day. It was mentally taxing, and I'm not complaining. I know I'm a blessed guy. I know I'm a lucky guy to be able to experience that environment. And I was mindful. A good friend of mine said, when you're up there, be mindful. I tried to take everything in, and I focused on what I could experience. But this was a true gift here. There's a couple gifts that happened during the trip that were unexpected. And this was a mother seal who had a little seal pup at a birthing there, and the birthing there was open. And David said he had never seen anything like this before. He said, wow, I'm just shocked. When we saw her, she was curiously just popping her head up, and I thought it was just a seal. And so I was sneaking around with my camera, getting, into positions to take photos. And at one point, she came right out of the ocean, right out of that seal breathing hole, and charged at us, not far, maybe 4 or 5 feet, and then went back. And I knew I was stressing her out. And I said, well, David, we should go. And he said, well, let's wait and see. So I backed up a bit, and she calmed down. A minute or two later, she calmed down. And then all of a sudden, I got to see this white little furry surprise. So this image here was one of those charges. Incredible moment, just the water coming out. She was coming towards us. We got to spend about 15 minutes with her. It was on our way back to the community. And so it was a happen upon quick shoot, and very thankful for the moment. Again, as David said, he had never experienced anything like this. Beautiful, tender moment with mother seal and her little seal pup. Innocent to their environment. My innocence is gone. As a friend of mine spoke after I got back, and I kind of decompressed on having that experience, which was a near-death experience. If there had been any current under that ice, if my elbows hadn't caught, it would be a very different situation. And I realized that life is very fragile, very fragile. And for these guys here, for the polar bears, life is very fragile for them as we continue to see this ice decline. It is estimated by 2050, we could lose 2/3 of the polar bear population of the world. And by 2100, polar bears could be extinct. And that's not an unreasonable estimate. We don't have ice. We don't have seals. If we don't have seals, we don't have polar bears. That's just reality. And I'm just a messenger, so please don't shoot me. Weathering the Storm, an image I released years ago, 70-kilometer-hour winds, and David and I were out on the ice. That was an incredible moment. I truly believe that this species will continue to survive in some manner, but they're going to need some help from us, from all of us. And at this point, I just want to do a poll. I know it's going to be kind of an interesting, maybe not a poll, but how can we be a voice for the Arctic? What does everybody think? Can people see the poll? Am I still in the air here? I hope so. I published the poll. Does everyone see the poll? Oh, yeah, everyone does. Yeah. Yeah. We have to inventory our own behaviors and determine what changes are best for the Arctic. What can we do? There's 3 R's: reduce, recycle, reuse. Well, I got to be honest, recycling is a little bit pointless. Please keep doing it. But the first R is reduce. We have to reduce. You just have to use this. We all do, including me. I'm one of the most guilty. Try my best to reduce in every way I can. We need to invest in, support, and change our behaviors to more green technologies. There's no question that there are technologies out there that, with the right support, with the right investment from our governments, from ourselves, listen, we all have RSPs. I'm sure we all have pension plans. Go talk to them. Go talk to your people that have your pension plan and demand that you're okay to take a smaller return on your investment. You want green technology to be supported. Solar panels, wind farms, all these things are possible. We can turn this tide around. Polar bears weather many storms. They got this if we got them. Reduce our consumption. Have discussions with your retirement fund managers. Mention that. Lead our family and friends in making choices that benefit all life. Little things. Turn the lights off. Don't use so much water. Whatever it might be. Plant a garden. Plant another tree. At All in the Wild, we have 1,760 acres set aside for nature. That's a decision that I made in 2010. That was a commitment that I made. And my team is behind me. And you guys have been behind me. And we're just a small company. Come on, big companies. Start doing it. It's time to act. And I'm sorry to get really strong, but it's time to act. We don't have time.
Okay, Mr. Nurulek,
Right.
we got another trip in, another adventure. What do you think of the adventure? What are your thoughts about it?
This one's one of the best that we have been through.
One of the best.
One of the best.
Why is that?
We see seal pop,
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
More things to see.
More things to see. Yeah, we saw caribou.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some foxes. Yeah. Not as many polar bears.
No.
Tough with the polar bears.
Mhm.
Yeah. Can you talk about the ice conditions out there? Like what you kind of saw, what kind of happened?
Down where we used to live. Well, we used to stay. Island. So thin. Dangerous.
Yeah.
At this time, I never seen it happen this time of the year.
Yeah.
Even the river not too far away start flowing.
Start going. Yeah.
Big change.
Big change. Yeah. Yeah. So we had a little bit of a joke, right, about me going through, right? I took a polar bear dip and we talk about walruses. What's that story? Because we shared it with your grandson. You shared it with me years ago.
No, I never started, but he started. I never thought, he said, if you go in the crack, walrus is going to eat you. Not long after, you went right through.
Right through into the ice. Yeah. Not fun. Not fun.
No, it's not fun.
No.
Dangerous.
Dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. So we're at the beginning of April. When would you typically see ice that thin? Like it's the beginning of April.
This one is way too early.
Way too early.
Way too early.
Yeah. So in terms of the land and the ice and such, you're an elder in your community. If you were to say something to the world, if you had one thing you want to say and share, for these young people like your grandson and such, what is it you would say? Are you worried? Are you not worried? What is it that you'd like to say, David?
I'm so worried. Like in the Blessed, if they would run into this river, they get stuck.
Yeah.
And they would end up wet feet, freezing feet.
Yeah.
So you gotta have your eye open to be out on the land.
Yeah. You spent your entire life on the land, right?
Yes.
And you've never seen it like this?
I've never seen it at this time of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
You want this land and ice for them so that they can hunt and so that they can live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if things keep changing, are you worried about that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, thank you. That's a wrap from the Arctic Ocean Ice for 2024. We had another good trip. Lots of excitement. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm muted again. I apologize about that. So anyway, David had mentioned to me he was quite nervous when I shot that video, so he was a little bit, yeah. So yeah, good comment by you, Norm, about opening your eyes. Be aware. As was kind of mentioned earlier in the webinar, that now when we look at some of this nature photography, when I would go up there, you have the dangers of the cold, you have the dangers of big furry white animals that can attack you and hunt you and such. And now on top of that is you have global climate change. So the risks are a lot more extreme when going up to get some of these images and to experience the Arctic and try to tell the story of the polar bears. So I apologize. I know my audio has been off quite a bit. So if there's any questions at this time, I'll open up the floor for the next 10 minutes or so. It was meant to be a little more interactive. I kind of went over time. Sorry about that. Yeah, again, I won't kind of preach about what's going on. We know some of the issues. We just have 8 billion people and an oversized kind of resource use by one species. So. But maybe people have questions about my photography or what I experienced, things like that. You're all welcome. Thank you very much as well for joining me. Those of you that are thanking me, I appreciate it. And again, sorry I was on mute there. So, is the Northwest Passage ice-free now year-round? Ron, I don't believe so. I don't know that 100%. I don't know if they can get icebreakers through there now or not. It's definitely going to be happening shortly. There's some strong currents in that area, I know for sure. And don't quote me because I don't know that for sure, but that would be a quick little Google search for you to find that out. Good question. Yeah. How many polar bears did I see on this trip? I saw quite a few polar bears, but could not work with them due to safety, due to primarily weather conditions and a new area, lack of days, but didn't see the number of polar bears we typically would at our polar bear camp. Definitely see a lot more there. We're working a lot further at an inland camp, but also the inlet is a lot further in, not on that edge where a lot of polar bears like to hunt, because there's a lot of wildlife activity there. So a lot of opportunities for them to hunt. But that being said, I'm grateful for the experience and for the bears that I did get to experience, the Arctic fox, the seal, mom and pup. As David said, I mean, phenomenal trip. And I think he had gratitude, because I think that at the end of the day, he was very scared when I went through the ice, and he was just grateful that everybody got out, everybody was safe. His grandson was safe. We hadn't lost any snowmobiles or anything like that. And I think that was a big part of it, that David is a very grateful man. He's just very grateful. So Linda said the drone captured a different view this time. Does the cold affect the operation of it? Yes, the drones are temperamental depending on actually fog conditions. Fog is not great for them. The batteries are always low when you're dealing with really cold conditions. You're taking a little bit of a risk with that equipment, but my flights are very short, and just not willing to take any chances with the equipment. So cognizant of the situation I'm in, Linda, and the cold weather. But again, at the beginning of April, it was shocking how some days were only -5 or 6. And the earliest I've ever gone to the Arctic previous to this was April 11th. And I said I'd never go before April 11th again. That year I came back with frostbite on my cheeks. It was so cold. That was about 6-7 years ago. I think it was 2017 or 2018. So even further back than that, excuse me. Yeah. And I said never go back. And this year I was there on April 2nd. And we had days that were -12 as a high, which is unheard of for that time of year. And like David said, when we came back, there was already a river that was flowing underneath the snow and ice. You could see it, and we had to cross it. Luckily, it wasn't that bad yet, but he said it wouldn't be many days if this kept up. So Charisse asked, where did you find the images to show the ice decline? Just do a Google search, Charisse, NASA and polar ice conditions or ice change over time, Arctic changes, Arctic ice change over time, and you should be able to find that, Charisse. So you've given us some, you're welcome, Ethel. Catherine asked, can you give some advice on how to talk to your investment advisors about changing how we invest? What I've done, Catherine, I obviously have to put away for the future, so I have RSPs. I don't want to make any, we all have to make a living. So if there's any financial investors on here, if there's anybody who's in the financial industry, I'm not hitting on anyone. This is a change that has to occur through every industry, nature photographers to people who work at Greenpeace. We all have to make changes. What I did is I went to my manager and I said, I want to know what companies I'm exactly invested in. And so I have 6 companies that I invested in. I researched them. I found out what they do and what their background is. So I'm not in things, for instance, some type of a fund that might be funding something that I don't even know that's going on, right? Some portfolios, if you invest, for instance, in a bank stock, banks will provide financial assistance to all kinds of companies, and those companies might be doing things that are not great for the environment and not open to change. Again, no judgment, please, here. I really want to be clear. I'm not making judgments. So, Catherine, that would be my recommendation, is do some research, do your homework, find out where your ethics are and what your value system is, and then talk to your manager and say, this is what I want. I want specific companies. I don't want to be in a plethora of things that I don't know. And I know I have a good friend who said, really, Jason, like, you have no investments, you have nothing, you're not going to make any difference. Yeah, but if we all decide to start to make these changes, a few make a bigger impact. I don't know. I mean, at the bottom of all of this is our financial system, right? I mean, unfortunately, I mean, money kind of makes the decisions of the planet. So thank you for that. That was a good question. What are your thoughts about Arctic animals that are in captivity? Is this beneficial for the species? This is Andrea asking this. Andrea, I'm going to take, I'm not really sure. It depends on the situation of where those animals came from. I'm not a huge fan of animals in captivity at all. I know sometimes, I know with some of the polar bears at the Winnipeg Zoo and such, those bears were bears that their mother had unfortunately been, harmed and was deceased. So I can't really say, but taking an animal out of its environment and then putting it into captivity is not for me. I think it's a pretty tough go when you look at a species like polar bears that wander, I don't know, 1,500 kilometers a year or something incredible like that. That Arctic fox went 1,200 kilometers over a course of a few years. I mean, they're world travelers, so I don't think they want to be in a 100-meter pen, but I'm not in their brain and I don't know. But education-wise, I think we can get a lot from a lot of the video, a lot of the photographers out there, a lot of the people that do this kind of work and bring appreciation to the species a little bit different. So, don't ask, your guide seems like a man of few words. Were your evenings and nights pretty quiet, or is he just a bit camera shy? Oh, Don, he's a chatty guy. He loves to talk. He's a really good guy. He's a storyteller, many stories, incredible fellow. David and I have been together for over 12 years. I consider him my Arctic dad. His wife, Susan, she made me these beautiful pair of sealskin mitts and gave them to me as a gift when I arrived to the community this year. And I was so grateful. Not something I needed, but I will cherish them. So really, really beautiful people. So you're welcome, Annette. You're welcome, Jerry and Sharon. Hope you're doing well. I need to ask, what's your opinion of the continued hunting of polar bears in Nunavik? The hunting quota is used to. Yeah, Anita, it is something that has been done for a very long time, Anita. And it is something that I really struggle with, killing a large animal like that. And a lot of times, it's not necessarily used for the right means. But a decision that someone makes in a downtown corporate office has a bigger impact on polar bears than, unfortunately, shooting one polar bear. For that polar bear, it's a very unfortunate situation, but it is regulated by biology and by the government, and so the quotas are set. I personally am not a fan of it, but I've been to Inuit communities, and these people are hunters. That's what they are, and that's their livelihood, and that's how they've been, and it's part of their survival. So I'm gonna say I'm neither yes or no on it, Anita. Aaron asks, the Calgary Zoo recently added polar bears. Have you had a chance to see them? Is it worrisome at our summer temperatures knowing how polar bears don't like warmth? Aaron, yeah, I know that they recently added them at the Calgary Zoo. Again, I don't know the situation of how those bears came to be, if they were orphans or something like that. The summers will be tough. I imagine the zoo will have a great care program for them. These zoos are funded, and especially the Calgary Zoo, from what I've heard, there's a research leg to it and such. So I believe that they'll be doing what they can to make sure that those bears are as comfortable as they can. And hopefully the educational side of it will outweigh the any stress that might be caused to those polar bears. Again, the more that we can talk about polar bears, the more that we can share the importance of what's going on to this species, the better the probabilities of people wanting to make those changes. Oh, Deb, for sure. I'll tell her that next. I'll tell David that next time. I like to thank David from all of us. Without him, no pictures. Thank you, Jason. Yes, for sure, Deb. Yeah. Arlene Just, you're welcome. Ray asks, what's the background in Out of the Darkness? Oh, that's a beautiful scene of a dark forest and a creek beside with snow in the trees still. Springtime. That was captured on May 14th, I believe, 2023 at 8:49 a.m. in the morning, Ray. And the light in that image is just out of this world. So there's a few images where there was breath coming out of his mouth, but it didn't, just incredible. Some awesome snow beside a creek. Yeah, pretty awesome shot. The boss and I have some type of connection, I think. So yes, I'm as well, Ethel. I'm glad everyone is safe. Anne asks, thank you, David and Jason, for sharing the beauty of the art. Sorry, Anne, just a thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome as well, Linda. Yeah, Brian, thank you. Yeah, it was a very emotional presentation. It's been a very emotional time since I went through the ice. having to realize my mortality, and just not sure where I go next with my polar bear career. And more sadness, that's from my perspective, but more sadness thinking about when you're snowmobiling for hours on end. After I went through the ice, we still had 6 to 8 hours back to that camp, and I went through the ice. Okay, that's fine, but those polar bears got to hunt, and they still have some ice. But how's this all going to play out, and how much stress and unnecessary pain is going to be created for that species and all the species that rely on polar bears. That to me makes me very sad for this planet. JL, why do you go in early April? Well, as I mentioned, it's the only time you can kind of hack the weather. Where I go, it's way too cold. Easily you'll get into blizzards that can be in the minus 60 range with the winds and such. So April has always been the time to go where I could hack it. David suggested maybe next year we go in March. I'm like, wow, that would be a full month earlier than typical. So I'm not sure if I'll be going back. I have family to think about, and obviously I pretty nervous out there now as well. So you're welcome, Marilyn. Yeah. Oh, way to go, Marla. Good job. We already changed all our investments to fossil-free years ago. Way to go, Marla. Congrats. Today is making a huge difference. I hope, Deb. Welcome back to Dryland. Yes. Okay. And yes, by all means, I have done webinars for schools. So if you know of someone who wants a webinar for a school, I would just volunteer for that. I don't expect anything else. I would love to share my voice. You're welcome, Roxanne. You're welcome, Sandra. You're welcome, Trish. You're welcome, Aaron. Yeah, Ron, I believe for the most part, polar bears are the only bear that will stalk humans. For the most part, other bears kind of leave us alone. Obviously, grizzly bears can sometimes be in that situation, and black bears as well. But polar bear diet is 99% carnivore, so they can be quite a dangerous animal, yeah. Don asks, have you seen many wolverine young, and what can you share of that species and their adjustments to climate change? Don, I haven't seen many young wolverines. I've seen quite a few wolverines out on the ice. They're rare species. When I read up on them, there's not a lot of research on them. They believe that their population is stable. They're just a rare species, so their numbers are low. They do rely on that ice as well for seals and such, but they're such opportunistic species that hard to say with climate change. I would be guessing. But with climate change, everything is going to change. For instance, Arctic fox, the red fox doesn't live in these parts of Canada where I go because it's too cold. Their ears are too long, their legs are too long. Arctic fox are well adapted. But as we look at areas like Churchill, Manitoba, there are red fox there. Red fox are slowly spreading north, and they will kill Arctic fox. There's a famous photo of a red fox with an Arctic fox in its mouth that it killed it, because it's a direct competitor for its food. So we will see other species start to move into these habitats. Will wolverines be moved out? I don't believe so. I don't know 100%, but I think that they are tenacious enough and such. And let's go down the positive road of hopefully that changes will come in time that our sea ice will remain in Canada. Oh, thank you, Lori. I really appreciate that. Yep, I'll stay safe. Yes, Deb, I hear you. You're welcome, Mark. You're welcome, Bonnie. Welcome, Patricia, Tonali. Yeah, Norm, it was interesting changing clothes on the ice. I'm glad I had dry clothes. And yeah, I won't lie, I was pretty emotional. I had to give David a big hug. And he said, you're going to be okay, Jason. I got you. So, and he did get me out safe. So you're all welcome. Hey, it looks like I've got to the end of all the questions. You can always reach out to me directly if you need to. Thank you for your continued support, and thank you for listening to me tonight and for being a part of this webinar. I wish you all a happy May. That's winds up our webinar series for 2024, and we'll see you at the galleries coming up. New books are coming out and such. And of course, everyone enjoy Out of the Darkness and The Judge, two incredible images. If you're looking for Mother's Day gifts, please, by all means, consider us at All in the Wild. We really appreciate, my team and myself appreciate all your support, as well our continued conservation and advocacy for nature. So take care, everyone. Keep loving nature. All right. All the best to you all. Thank you.